Are you ready to get woke? Welcome to the Woke as podcast with your host, Alex Lazarev.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to part 2. How do I even say it? There's so much stuff in here. We talk about Toth, Archangel, Michael, other beings. We talk about the connection between your heart and the sky, being happy in the moment, the importance of completing your shamanic journey. What is connection and how do we stay connected? Are we all just doing drugs and drinking to try and feel that connection? We get into also hot and cold electricity and even weird stuff like limbic reprint and recoding. I don't even know what that is. I've heard a couple of very interesting things. One of the things I've heard from a couple of sources is that if you go and lay outside under the stars and you completely blindfold yourself so no light goes in, can it all go into your eyes, and you focus in and you look at your heart, if you actually go in there, you'll eventually be able to see through your heart. If you look into your heart, you'll see the exact same patterns. You'll be able to see the what's in the sky through your heart, and the alignment of the stars is exactly perfect, and it's the same as our hearts.
That sounds like fun, but I would make sure that your pineal has soaked up as much starlight and is totally full before doing that exercise. Yeah, it's sort of like before you play with your food, eat it. Mm-hmm. And then once you're full, because there's an infinite abundance of light, then play. But eat first. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't be hard for you because you're a pig.
That's true. I am a pig. So, what's next?
Where else shall we traverse? Where would you like to go?
I think recently I'm starting to get interested in Thoth. Let's talk about Thoth a little bit.
Sure.
Let's maybe bring Thoth in the room and see what Thoth wants to say about Thoth.
He's never left.
He's just floating around.
He's got so much to say. Half the time when all of a sudden I just burst out with something, it's because they've annoyed me so much that I just don't stay quiet about it anymore. You know, it's like kids in the room going blah, 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 blah. And then you're just like, shut up!
No, but seriously, it would be really cool. Why don't you just briefly tell us a little bit about the Thoth, and then maybe we can invite him to share something with the nice people.
God.
Or maybe Thoth wants to tell us who he is and a little bit about himself.
Are you asking me to channel? I don't do that shit, man.
Yeah, but he would just be starting to yap right now, and you'd be like, okay, I'll tell the people.
Usually I'm just a messenger. I tend not to... I feel like Muji's given me the eyeball.
There's a Muji poster by it. She's not just saying that randomly. Let me ask Thoth and see, because I'm starting to suspect me and him are buddies.
Suspects.
Thoth, I know you're around here hanging around, and I know we've been friends in my other quote incarnations, even though it's all just really one thing. But I feel that you're doing a lot of good out there, and I think it would benefit the listeners out there just to connect with you and know a little bit about who you are, and potentially maybe they could have their own connection with you, and that would be good for them and for the greater good. So would you have anything to say to the fine people that will be listening to this recording, old friend? It's okay if he wants to be shy. We could still talk shit about him. And he could not say anything.
I mean, there's so many different perspectives and teachings when it comes to figures like Thoth and Michael and Metatron and all these, celebrity beings. I never even thought of them that way before. Celebrity beings, but they kind of are.
Yeah, I think that's just fun. I'm gonna get a T-shirt that just says "Celebrity Being Present." I don't know. I think it's funny. Celebrity beings.
Okay.
But it's very similar to "Celebrate Being."
Celebrate being,
which is beautiful as well.
It is
very interesting.
I like the way you spun that. That was good. I in some ways I kind of prefer the sort of the less celebrity who've grown in their celebrity, like the Abrahams. The Z's, like Lee Harris channels the Z's. They're a collective of entities that all have names that begin with Z. They're enjoyable. So I kind of enjoy the lesser known entities or collective consciousnesses. Thoth has been around for a really long time and is woven through eras. So when you start doing your non-textbook history searching, your esoteric history searching, whether that's Egypt or Sumeria or back, you find this character cross-culturally not always called Toth. Toth is very much from Egypt and the Mediterranean peoples, and connected to Metatron, the angel. And if you then start going back more and looking into like galactic histories, then you see ET connections to gods or, aliens that have godly powers. Ultimately, Thoth is the one who gave man knowledge, who gave man the written word, and is connected to knowledge, to clairsentience. Metatron's connected to technology, again, knowledge and understanding. I don't know what to call him, but one of the angels that assists me quite a lot is Michael, and that's I really hate saying that because I feel like I'm a fucking cliche. Just excuse my cursing, but just I do, and I don't want to say it because I feel like a hippie cliche or like one of those spiritual people, and I'm just like, can't it like be anybody else? Like please just give me like a Sarah or a Zanzibar.
He's just too popular, right? Everyone always
everybody wants Archangel Michael.
It's true.
He's like so popular, and I'm just like, I wish it wasn't.
Maybe he's
him.
just busy. He's just overcompensating for something. He's really.
Do you have a small penis? He's like, I don't have a penis. I'm like, oh, is that what it is?
He's here right now because we're talking about him.
He's always here. Omnipresent like Thoth. Yeah. Once you establish a connection and it's like the trees, once you got that connection,
that's
it. You were like, I'm connected.
Yeah.
Awesome. Once you get the voice, it's like, I'm connected. And then you can say, I can't really hear you. Can you speak up? And the volume goes up, or you're way too loud. Can you turn it down? And the volume goes down. Or sometimes I get visuals and it's like, whoa, get out of my face. Because like, they're all like, I'm right here. And I'm like, it's just a bit too much, especially because my main sense, or the first one that I felt comfortable to grow was empathy. So the feeling. So I would be able to feel it, and it's still my strongest sense. So I can feel something. It's not seeing or hearing specifically, but I can tell you what it looks like, feels like, blah, 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 based on that feeling sense, like closing your eyes and your ears and sort of touching it and being able to say, okay, well, I can feel this table, and on the table there's this mug. Not because I can see it, but because I can feel it. So when you combine that feeling with then like a rainbow colored entity in your face, it's a bit much. It's a bit much. It's a bit intense. But all of these inner senses are Thoth's domain. So anywhere where knowledge, especially esoteric knowledge, is being grown or coming out, I don't know if that resonates with you. Thoth comes to help, especially those who are in the soul tribe, who have cognitive or feeling memories of previous eras of man. Or as some people, because there's so many different communities and perspectives of information. You've got people who are like, no, it's ETs, and it was definitely the Pleiadians, the Sirians, the Orions, the Lyrians, the Zetaractylians, the whatever. Yeah. And it was ETs. What are they? They love them. They love blaming them for like everything that's wrong in the world. Anunnaki. Yeah, it's like, just blame the Anunnaki. And I mean, that's all very well and good. And then you've got like the angel fanatics where it's all about the angels. And it's all the same stories. Yeah, whether you're looking at using religion as this analogy, whether you're looking at the book of Enoch or the Torah or the Bible or the Quran, it's all the same stories, but they're just different perspectives. Yeah, they're all variously true and not true through the filter of which they're spoken. And I'm fairly sure I just offended a lot of people.
This is the one podcast you can offend as many people as you like.
Yes.
And no one will get offended.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think that's true. I think that's true.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Okay. I shouldn't be worried about offending people. Yeah, because people who are very religious tend to get offended really easily.
Funny that, isn't it? I'm super spiritual, and I'm all about God, and if you say anything that I'm going to get really pissed off. Really? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Wow, yeah, you're super spiritual.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. So, yeah, the Thoth, the name Thoth, that incarnation or mask of that energy has come to you in that way because of your connection to the stories with it. Yeah, so there's other types of beings, and I bet you if you were to actually make a list, because you've paid attention, of all the different ways that spirit through people or synchronicity have come through to tell you to look at or do certain acts or looking up practices or whatever, you'd find a connection because it's the same energy that's asking you to be more aware of it, to bring it into greater cognition. Doesn't matter what you call it.
So are you saying there's no difference between using the word Thoth or spirit?
Well, Thoth is
there are separate entities. Spirit is like the all of everything, and then Thoth is an actual being like we're beings, except he's just older and can move through dimensions and God knows what. But he's still a being with his own personality. Like if he were to manifest here in form and hang out with us for half an hour, we would be like, wow, he's so XYZ. He'd either be funny or serious or intense, but he'd have his own flavor of being. He wouldn't just be...
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just like you have your own flavor and I have mine.
It's like within that... in the Hindu traditions... Oh, even better. In the Tibetan tradition of reincarnation, you know how the Rinpoche thing works. Yes, no? So
sure.
You've got these Rinpoches, and they reincarnate and remember their past lives, and then other Rinpoches who knew those Rinpoches go, oh yeah, it's you, and they're like, oh yeah, dude, and they give them a test, and they have to pass this test, where they have to pick objects. They're a bunch of objects are put out in front of them, and they have to pick all the objects that belonged to their previous incarnation. And then they discuss memories that they have with people who remembered that previous incarnation. Yeah. So that's how Rinpoches work. Now, does that mean that the Rinpoche who has, passed on has the same personality as the Rinpoche that's now in current physical form? Yes and no. They're different. There's a resonance that's the same. It's the same soul, but they have slightly different personalities. So Thoth is not any different. Thoth, Metatron, one is a more angelic interpretation or perspective of the same energy. And when you're talking about things at that level, it's not even really one entity. It's a collective of entities that form one thing, in the same way that your physical body is multiple communities of trillions of amoebas that form your skin and your bones and all of that. Yeah, you're not just this one thing. You are this one thing, and you are also. So especially when we dive down the rabbit hole of non-duality or the unification principles of all things, then you start not really being able to say but and or, but everything becomes an and, because there are no longer dichotomies. There are no longer, or there are many dichotomies. There are no longer dualities. There's no hot or cold. It's hot and cold, which makes it warm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a shit analogy. Who made me say that? I blame you.
That's the thing about being super psychic. You just blame the beings around you for anything stupid that you say. That retarded thing I said to
Who made me say
that was
that?
one of these guys. Okay, that was one of your spirit guides,
I
by the way.
abdicate my responsibility for what I just said.
That's right. It's not even one of my spirit guides. Your spirit guides, Sasha, are retarded. They made me say that stupid shit.
Oh my god, it wasn't even your spirit guides. It was like the pet of your spirit guides, but like visiting friend.
It's one of you listeners right now that we know in the future will be listening. One of your spirit guides is making us say retarded stuff, so cut
Stop
it out.
it. Stop it.
That's right, you listener. You wonderful spiritual being, you.
I do that in my Ask Avi Esther hour. Sometimes a card will pop out, and I'll be like, I'm not sure who this is for. It's probably for somebody who's watching back later, and then I'll read whatever is coming up. But, you know, when we step into these realms of talking about this layer of consciousness, time just doesn't exist there. The precepts, the effect of time is very different there. It's not linear. So the cause and effect is very different.
This has definitely been one of the more loopy, it's great.
It's totally bizarre.
It's so good. It's fantastic. This is going to be one of those people who are going to be like, this was the greatest one ever, or
what the fuck?
Exactly right.
What are they talking about?
It's so great. No,
Are you stoned? No.
That's why I love this podcast. There's absolutely no, like, people wouldn't be listening to this episode at all if they weren't into it. That's the thing. They would have just checked out like 10 minutes into the first one. They would have been like, these guys are insane. We've talked about crazy shit before.
But I'm not insane.
Not crazy at all,
I'm not insane.
No, I know that. I can vouch for that.
Yeah. I'm maybe a little bit insane.
So let's talk about the this, for me, this was really profound. What I suspect this is what was coming, but I suspected it was coming, but me not being able to connect to source and be at peace and just be happy and blissful in London, it's been a real struggle for me. I did a bunch of Cambo, and I think that did help, and now I'm a bit better. And then just a couple of days ago, I went and I just sat in Hampstead Heath in some nature, and I was like, oh, I can do this here, and that helped. But I think it's something that everyone in modern day society, whether they're on the spiritual path or not, can, I think, relate to, is just that feeling of like, just disconnection, not being grounded, like so much is happening, and you just can't you can't just be happy in the moment, whatever that moment is. You know, it's such a recurring theme. And it's weird because when you're totally just living your normal human life and you're just not at all on the spiritual path, you're just like, you just do your stuff, and you're just like, you know, you're just not on it, you're not worried about it, you're not thinking about God or spirit, any of that stuff, you're just, maybe you believe, maybe you don't, but you're just living your normal human life. It's almost like you don't even know what you're missing, so you're not, you know what I mean? Like, you don't even know that you're unhappy. You're just normal. You're just a normal person doing your things. And if you get really unhappy, they just call it depression and they put you on some pills. For me, I was quite happy most of my life. But when I was actually able to finally, only recently, just in this past year, really connect with spirit, with source, and just be like, holy fuck, I am one with all, and I can fucking manifest, and I'm being listened to, and I'm, holy shit, just starting to discover the sanctity of really what I am, and just how amazing it is. As soon as I disconnect from that, then I feel truly emptiness, truly what it is to be disconnected, in the deepest sense, and it's painful. It's pain. It's suffering. It's a real suffering, and I think so
like
many people.
Like a seesaw. Like, because you felt that extreme connection, you
Yeah.
had like the rubber band effect and it flung you back into total disconnection?
Yeah.
Where did you feel it in your body?
I think in my heart.
In your heart, in your chest.
Yeah, it's just an uneasiness. It's just a feeling of like you're doing and you're doing and you're doing, but there's no point to it. And there's no joy and there's no happiness.
That's an emotion.
It's more like a lack of.
That's an emotion. I'm not asking about your emotions. Oh, God, I'm turning into a fucking filled in Christ.
Yeah, here we go.
No, Sasha! Alex, what you feel?
That would be way too much of an inside joke for anyone to understand. But anyway, we can talk about that another time. So my point is simply that I wanted to discuss how do we as humans, as certainly humans that are living in these big cities that are in many ways unnatural states of being, how do we connect? How do we feel that the love of the divine?
Well, that's why I asked what you were feeling in your body. We are the earth. This is earth. It's not separate from. So if you're feeling lost in your mind or your emotions, the place you can always come home to is this. And I'm patting his thigh, which sounds far more intimate than it was.
Close to the knee, guys. All right.
It was
Knee area, folks.
And it was more like a punch.
That's right.
I was like, yeah, give him a Charlie horse in the thigh, man, knee. But it's nonetheless true. So the reason why I asked where did you feel it in your body was because in that disconnection, so you're filled with light. You're filled with that connectedness. And I'm willing to guess that you felt it in your belly, in that total connectedness, and it sort of flowed up through your heart, and you felt it through the sides or back of your neck and out your crown, and there was a tingling sensation in your third eye, and you could feel it in either your forearms or your palms. Probably not your fingertips, but maybe your fingertips, depending on how your breath was. So, typical response. I don't know if you felt anything in your legs. I don't get that you felt anything in your legs, but you may have. So in that disconnection, usually it stems from a point in your body or a couple of points in your body where there is that trauma from loss. That loss can be real or it can be a feeling response. Or, like a over-exaggerated feeling response. Everybody has them. So when you have these really profound moments of close to source, basically all of that stuff that you're holding in your physical body starts to unravel, to come out. And you basically have a choice. You can either go deep into it, and it feels literally like you're doing a small shamanic journey, meaning the story of Orpheus is Orpheus, blah, 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 goes into hell, gets what he wants, and gets out. That's super
fast version.
Super fast version. Less happy ending than it sounds. But so it's a small Orpheonic journey or shamanic journey. The only way out is through. And typically people stop. And then they spend the next fill in the blank amount of time circling around, dipping their toe into whatever that is, physically, emotionally, or mental patterns. And they take their time. You know the movie The Labyrinth?
Oh, yeah, for sure. That was like my favorite fucking movie when I was a kid.
Toward the beginning, when
trippy.
she first enters the labyrinth and she meets the worm on the wall. And he helps her to see the labyrinth. What does he say? Do you remember?
No, at this point, no way.
So he lets her know that the wall has an opening. And then she goes through the wall opening, but perceives there to be another wall. So she goes left and then goes right or something like that. And the worm kind of looks really confused and goes, oh, silly girl. She should have just kept going straight. And that's the same thing. So while it looks like there's a wall there, and so she went to the right or whatever it was, and had to go through this huge journey where she met all these friends and had all these profound experiences. But if she really just wanted to get to the castle to get her little brother, the most direct route is straight through. So when that feeling comes up, instead of stopping, you go into it. You feel like you're going to die in that emotion, that you will sink into the pit of disconnection or unlovability or unworthiness or whatever your personal demon is. Challenge, whatever, articulation feels better. And then you come through, and then you realize that at no point have you ever been disconnected from source. But it's only through working out those human technology kinks that we experience that. Yeah, I call the body the human technology, because it's a vehicle for our consciousness, for our soul.
So that makes sense if you're sitting there meditating or whatever, and you're feeling discomfort and you're going into it. But for me, I don't get that. When I'm sitting there blissed out in nature, I'm totally blissed out in nature, and it's all good. I'm just like, oh my God, and it's just great. It's when I'm here in London and I'm like just doing things, and I go to some poopy park and I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here and chill out, and I can't. And it's just, there's all this thoughts in my head and energy, and I just cannot chill the fuck out. I can't get into that space. That's been the struggle. And I think some people will listen to that and go, yes, I get it. And other people, if they've never been in that space, won't even know what I'm talking about.
The poopy park?
No, just the disconnection. They'll just be like, what do you mean? Because they're always in a normal, but they're normal. May very well be disconnected.
Even normal people know connection. There is a point in everybody's life where they have felt totally connected. The majority, I think, of mainstream displaces that feeling of connection onto romantic relationship or onto their parents. Or for some of the creatives, into their passion. But why they love that experience of relating is because it enables them to feel and experience their connection to source. The other inspires their connection to source. That's why we fall in love. That's why, there's so much rampant codependency, because we crave source and our connection to it. And orgasms. Which is bliss and connection to source.
That's interesting. So you're saying everybody just wants connection to source, and we're just finding all these cheats, basically, or permission slips.
Yeah.
So even alcohol or drugs.
Definitely.
Sex.
Yes.
Travel.
Yes.
Shopping.
Definitely. Definitely. And if there's anybody who'd like to take me shopping, no. I say yes.
That's a joke. Not.
I love shopping.
I feel like there's more to be said there, because a lot of people drink to just cover up their problems. But I guess that state of being without problems is closer to source.
Yeah. What happens if you just let it go? Well, how do I let go? It's like when you like carrying heavy things, yeah, and then you finally put them down. You can't fully stretch out your hands for a little bit. It takes them a while to unfurl, and it hurts. Yeah, it's really painful. Or like if they get really cold, it's the same sort of thing. It takes them a while to go back to their normal state of being. So what do you need in order to help to facilitate that more normal state of being? And because pain, it's like, bad pain, to make it stop. It's like, well, whatever. So in that scenario where you're carrying heavy things, it's like you can rub your hands or put something soothing on them to help ease the muscular contraction. If they're cold, you run them in warm water to bring back the circulation into your hands. You find whatever tools are available to help relax. So alcohol is great. I am very non-judgmental about alcohol and drugs. It's like, I don't mind telling this story. In New Year's, I was really struggling to get to my bliss center. I was just like, I couldn't, I know all this information and yet. And so I decided that I needed to be in a certain state that I wasn't able to get to, and that LSD would be the shortcut to that state, because I didn't want to spend another 4 months as I currently was. So I did LSD. I locked myself in a room by myself on New Year's Eve, and I tripped. And during that time period, I found resolution to core emotional issues. I figured out how to make 2,000 pounds. Like I was just like, oh yeah, and then there's that, and then oh yeah, there's that one, and it just came like this. And the more I let go of whatever emotional issue was holding myself physically and emotionally in resistance, cleared, and then it cleared, and then it cleared. And so, on one hand, you could say that I was actually avoiding those things, but on the other hand, you could say that I was highlighting my resistance to be able to clear it. And it's the same with alcohol. If I'm really tense, like if I'm having physical and emotional tenseness and I just need to relax the fuck out, yeah, and it's just like, oh, there's the relaxation. And then as soon as you're relaxed, source comes through. As soon as you stop resisting, as soon as you just chill out, source comes through. Where it becomes damaging is where you are relying solely on substance, sex, drugs, or whatever, and you're not reaping the benefit of experience and then being able to reproduce it yourself without the teacher tool.
Yeah, that was one of my realizations last time in Ecuador. I was just sitting there, just sitting in nature, being, breathing. I got really, really high, just breathing. Like where I was like, holy fuck, I'm starting to trip balls here. And suddenly it was just this understanding came through, and I was like, oh, I never have to do any drug or substance or plant medicine ever again. Everything is all the healing and wisdom, and even just getting high off my face, it's all just here inside me. I don't need to do anything. And I just knew it. It was like, it was like a knowing of like, that's it. That's it. All the drugs, everything. I mean, it was all great, but it was all just stepping stones that helped me along the way, permission slips. But then it's like, I don't need anything anymore. And that's not to say I won't one day go and do some San Pedro and have a great time and learn even more, but I don't need it. There's no more need. It would just be that'd be a cool experience. But
see, I agree with you when in that experience of finding it difficult to find your ease and connection within a city environment. And I also find that as soon as something becomes filled with greater ease, and maybe this is totally my patterns of behavior, I feel like it just next levels. It's like, oh yeah, you found it easy now? Okay, well, let's take this away, and this away, and this away, and all these attachments and identifications, and now go. And you're like, oh shit, it's a little chilly, can I have a coat? No, oh, okay, fuck, okay. And then you still got to get back to source. And it's like, nah. And just like in a video game, it gets more and more challenging. Luckily, what I've consistently found is that those challenges that you meet on that level that you're at help make it easier for wherever you're heading. And, there have been years, like there was a good 7 years that I did nothing. I mean, breathing, yoga. I was teaching women how to have ecstatic births and facilitating birth. And that was super trippy and highly rewarding in many ways. And, that was a phase that I went through. And then I went through another phase where tobacco, like rolling tobacco and what is it called?
Spirit tobacco?
No. It's from the Amazon. It's
Rape?
No, not rape. Not the tobacco you put up your nose. It's the indigenous name for the original genius of tobacco. So not the synthesized or genetically modified version that most people smoke today, but an original growing plant. I can't remember the name of it.
Crystal meth.
That's definitely not it. That's going to bother me.
You can Google it if you really want to.
I'm going to Google it.
Google actually. There's one thing I would like to talk about, which it's weird because it came up in conversation the other day, randomly, and then you started yapping about it. I was like, this bitch knows a lot about this stuff, and the topic was electromagnetic/Wi-Fi frequencies.
Yeah.
And as soon as you started gabbing about it, I was like, wait, shut up. Let's talk about it on the podcast, because I've been meaning to talk about this. And my personal experience has been that this stuff is really fucking people up. I've told the story to people, but not on the podcast. And basically, when I was in Ecuador, I was staying somewhere in a part of town where like nobody used Wi-Fi, and in the building I was in, nobody fucking used Wi-Fi. And somebody even asked me like, "You're not going to use Wi-Fi on your, are you? Because we don't want that here." I was like, "No, I'm actually not gonna. I'm gonna plug in old school." They're like, "Cool." So for a few weeks, I didn't use any Wi-Fi of any kind. And one day, I just wanted to check something on WhatsApp, and so I had to get my phone on Wi-Fi. There's no way around it. I was like, I'll just use Wi-Fi for a few minutes. I plugged it into the wall, and I felt immediately sick, like bad, like dizzy, a heat entering my head, and I just felt this bad, and I was just like, oh, I feel shitty, like really shitty, and I was like, what the fuck? And as soon as I unplugged it, it stopped, and I was like, if that is what I felt after not using it for weeks, and I plugged it in for a minute, what am I being exposed to being in a city where everyone around me is on their Wi-Fi all the time? And that's when I realized we're all fucked.
Maybe.
So, and so now I just stay the fuck away from it. I stay away from it. And I wonder if part of the reason why if I go somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi signals, the reason I feel amazing is not just because I'm in nature, because I'm away from all the fucking Wi-Fi signals.
Yeah, both.
Both, right? It's got to be both.
Both.
So, nobody listening to this podcast has any illusions about the fact that we're lied to and manipulated about pretty much all of, quote, reality. So it won't be a surprise to anyone that we haven't been told the truth about EMFs, Wi-Fi signals, all that stuff. I'm pretty sure the reason the frequency they're using is a bad one is because they want it to be a bad one to fuck people up.
Because there is a good one, and they just don't use it. There is a good one,
and they don't use it. Yeah, right, of course. So
same with electricity. The wires in your walls, the same, but different. And they chose they basically told Tesla to go fuck off, and they chose Edison's electricity because it was hot and it killed people, and it, consumed fuel instead of providing ample electricity or energy.
Can you tell us the difference between hot and cold electricity?
Yes, explosion. So hot electricity, you run on the principles of explosion, meaning that two particles clash together and create friction, and therefore heat, and therefore chaos. Yeah, it's hot. And implosion, which is cold electricity. So it's creating a coherent field. So instead of exploding, they're combining. And then you get this amplificational energy that grows and is life-affirming. It's actually good for you. It heals your body. It keeps it in its perfected state, as opposed to explosion, which creates chaos and disorder within your body and helps it to get closer to the grave.
Funny how this comes up again, this little topic.
Oh.
Like we had in the sauna.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So basically... Mr. Tesla, that was his, we most people I think are aware that he did have free energy. And
he's the dude with the car, right?
He's the guy with the car, totally, with those awesome cars that run on batteries that are going to save the planet.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you have to burn more fossil fuels you make the electricity to charge the batteries than you do if you just burn fuel. Let's not think about that, because that wouldn't be cool anymore.
No, but he makes the cars, right?
Yeah. But I never really researched the test of technology. I just know the story of how, as soon as he proved, as soon as they proved it, they got rid of it.
Yes, and the car that he came out with in the 20s is very different from the one that's manufactured today. It's a completely different system. It's run off of towers and sending and receiving from a generator within the car, or a receiver within the car that through electromagnetic wave frequencies connects to a tower. But that's off topic.
They're doing that in Russia now.
Are they?
Yeah. I heard about this 2 years ago, and they were saying in 2017 it was going to be running quite a large area where they had the fields and they were running stuff.
One tower would run thousands of cars, or hundreds of cars.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But back to Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Wi-Fi a little bit. What do you know about the Wi-Fi?
Well, let's talk about waves, and not like the kind in the oceans. Sorry, I've got songs in my head now. So all biological matter produces waves. So we call them electromagnetic wave frequencies. Thoughts have wave frequencies. Your heart has wave frequencies. Yeah. We understand this? I don't need to explain that.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
And all of that is like verifiable. You can hook up electrodes. You can see them. Yeah. And these wonderful contraptions that we've made, whether it's your microwave, which is a microwave frequency, it's producing a wave that interferes with the waves in you're organically producing. So you're a sending receiving organism, your body, yeah, and I'm a sending receiving organism, and so based on those waves that we are rippling, we will either be attracted to, and I don't mean that in a sexual way, but like be like, oh yeah, I like that. That feels good. I have a question here. I feel inspired to say some bullshit. Or it will be like, oh, I feel a bit weird and I'm going to walk the other way, like really fast, like with I'm running now, And so everybody has these experiences of being attracted to a color, being attracted to a style or not, depending on their preference and their feeling, whether they want to admit it or not. Because people are like, no, it's purely logical. It's like, well, actually, how much of your logical thoughts are actually feeling based? Just deeper level of awareness. So when we put Wi-Fi, which is emitting a electromagnetic frequency, we're beginning to interfere with our biological electromagnetic frequencies. And depending on the physical structures that we live in, those waves are either leaving the house, like continuing their journey outward, or they're bouncing off of materials and sort of like you're stuck in that electromagnetic field, which is like, it's like being overcooked. So you in your healthiest state of being are sentient and powerful enough to not be affected by these waves. You have the greater consciousness, because that with the greater consciousness has the greater magnetism, which means that the other things will fall into its orbit as opposed to you falling into their orbit. You'll have the greater impact or effect on them as opposed to the other way around. Now, when your system is not healthy, it's harder to have that density or strength of magnetism, and so then you are affected by other things. So things that like Wi-Fi boxes have a more damaging effect on you. David Hawkins wrote a book, Power versus Force, and he's got a wonderful chart in there that talks about the emotional connection to your wave frequency. And you can use your emotions, and you can use meditation to help control your thoughts, find those higher feeling thoughts, and bring yourself into a higher emotional state of being, because it actually does make your physical body healthier. And then the electromagnetic wave frequencies, the microwave frequencies, the various other wave toxins in our social environment have less of an impact on you. And it sucks to be chronically bombarded with that which interferes with your natural state of being. It's just not cool, which is also why it's challenging to ground in the city. There's a lack of soil to put your feet in. There's a lack of starlight. There's, in London, a lack of sunlight. A lot of people work 9 to 5, and here in England, once you get into November, sun comes up around 8, 9, or 7, 8, and goes to bed around, but in December it's like 4 p.m. the sun's going down. So like people are like getting up, going into work, and so they're getting up in the dark and they're leaving work in the dark. And so they're surrounded by Wi-Fi. They're not getting anywhere near nature or trees or natural bodies of water. Chlorinated water does not count. There's no starlight. There's no sunlight. It's just like, let's see how challenging the human organism can survive. And it's just not optimal in any way, shape, or form.
It's a fucking shit show.
It sucks. And then I'm like, I need to go to Mexico. Please make me go to Mexico.
Yeah, just anywhere.
Yeah, no,
Anywhere
I
in
like
nature.
Mexico. Tacos make me feel better.
Tacos are pretty good.
Oh my God. Yeah, and I love mezcal.
So I think that's the big question, because most people, unfortunately, are stuck in some city because that's where the work is, and people need to make that paycheck until you get to a certain understanding where actually you can escape and not have to make a paycheck. But that takes a while to get to that place. So that's why it's such an important discussion. You know, how do we... And this really fits into what we were talking about before, right? How do we get grounded and connected and feel amazing while in the fucking heart of the goddamn beast?
Well, you know, this is really interesting because when I was teaching ecstatic birth, we would do this process. When I said we, I'm talking like about myself, and like I'm starting to refer to myself as a we. I would do this process called the limbic imprint. I would do this process called limbic recoding, limbic imprint recoding. Sorry, it was a while ago. Yeah. So limbic imprint recoding essentially leads you through a story that is similar to your life, but how you actually needed it to be. So what are the psychological, emotional, and physiological experiences that you lacked and therefore have not been able to reproduce in your life that you would like to reproduce in your life? And when you're on a shamanic journey, whether you're tripping or on alcohol or totally sober in meditation, it doesn't matter. If your mind is seeing it, your heart is feeling it, and your body is feeling it, your brain encodes it or records it as real. It doesn't matter if it's really real or not. And this sort of starts bleeding into the whole virtual reality conversation. Yeah, and a lot of the studies that I've read and information that I know is actually based on research done around VR. Because I like tech. I love tech. So how do you get grounded? Well, if you can't get to the beach, if you can't get to the park, if you can't... So it helps if you've had an experience like that and that you can recall it at any point. And then you go through, whether you're in meditation or whether you're just taking 5 minutes by yourself, close your eyes and imagine you're sitting in the park and reach down to the grass and feel the grass with your fingers. What does it feel like? What is the texture? Like really feel it. And then what you take it, so it's so simple. So you feel the grass with your fingers, and then you press your palm down and you can feel the slight dampness of the soil, and you can feel your bottom on the ground, and you look around, you open your eyes within your imagining, and you see a tree, and you have this conversation with the tree? What are you feeling? And you ask yourself these very simple questions that bring it into your physical experience, and that will have an emotional impact while you're fantasizing. So you're actually recording it in your brain as real. And you're producing the same hormones that you would if you were really there. So ultimately, it doesn't necessitate. So before I trip over my own words, going and sitting in an actual park is much better, because you have these things called telluric energies, or energies coming from the earth, which have negative ions and are hugely beneficial for your body. When you're sitting in your office having this imagination, you don't have that. But you can connect to the earth in that way, through yourself, through your body. When you're in full alignment of your mind, your emotions, and your physical form, you produce the same chemicals that you would if you were really in the park. And while it's not as optimized as going and sitting actually next to a tree and feeling your fingers in the grass, it's pretty darn close. You don't get the benefits of grounding, but you do get the benefits of the communication with nature and grounding in your body. But the challenging thing here, while that's a really nice practice for most people who do have 9-to-5 jobs, is why this works is because ultimately there is no difference between your body and the body of the earth. And this is a bit of a challenging concept for many people. To end it on a really weird note.
Yeah, great. That's great, Avi. After making fun of all the woo-woo extra spiritual people, just imply that we're all one casually. Don't go into it, and then just cut it off there. That's real nice, sweetheart. That was a blast. Make sure that you are on our mailing list on woke.as, because we are shoveling people into our new woke community, and other special announcements are coming shortly, so I don't want you to miss out. And if you haven't already, check out Avi's website, Avi Esther, that's ESTHER.com. Love you guys very much, and see you in the next one. Ciao.